You're listening to a message from New Beginnings Lakeside Church.
So now I have the privilege of introducing our guest speaker, Becky Doughty. She is the author of Christian romance and inspirational women's fiction. She's also the voice behind more than 150 audiobooks, which I think is so cool, in those same genres. She and Kevin, who often is our drummer here at church, they just celebrated 33 years of marriage this past June. Yeah, that deserves an applause for sure. They have 3 grown children, 4 grandchildren, and she put 4 now, right? So I guess that means she's hoping for more. They've shared their home with a motley crew of pets over the years, from dogs and cats to goats and horses, chickens, ducks, and even snakes and spiders. So that's a little different, but hey. Do you, right? They both love to garden, and Becky is a hobby herbalist. Most of her books have garden themes running through them. Becky has a heart for edge dwellers, those people who ride the fence, whether by choice or by force. One of her favorite passages is from a song of King David's, Psalm 18, 16 through 18. This is so beautiful. But me he caught, reached all the way from sky to sea. He pulled me out of that ocean of hate, that enemy of chaos, the void in which I was drowning. They hit me when I was down, but God stuck by me. Open field. I stood there saved, surprised by love. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, surprised to be loved. Surprised to be loved. Thank you, Becky, for having us read that. That's beautiful. So Becky is the real deal, and we're so excited to get to hear from her today and hear what God has called her to share with us. Becky, can you come on up? Oh, my goodness, look at this. Love it. Warrior princess. Please tell me that's what you are. Warrior princess.
Isn't this beautiful? Let's give a round of applause, appreciation for all the work that went into this wonderful breakfast. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad you're all here too. So Megan got the, straight off my website, bio. So I'm going to tell you a few more things about me. I'm going to need my glasses. Where are they? There we go. Okay. I'm going to tell you a few things about me that will make me seem maybe a little bit more approachable. I know these can be off-putting, but it's okay. I'm not really that scary. Okay, so I am part chameleon. I know you won't be able to see it, so I'm not even going to try it, but it's not because I can change colors on demand, which would be cool, but I can actually move my eyes independently of each other. It's entertaining, but it does give me a stress headache, so eye strain headache, so I won't do it here. I might fall over too. I'm a little bit off-center, off-weighted, but I'm a major klutz, which makes these extra dangerous, and God thought it would be funny to have me marry a drummer, and to have all my kids have superb rhythm, and one of their favorite pastimes is to do call and response with me, where they do, you guys know what this is? Where they'll do a drum beat. Hey, I actually did it. And then I'm supposed to copy them, and it just gets harder and harder. I usually last around 2 rounds. So anyway, they all think it's funny, and I think God does too. I grew up on the mission field and in the tropics, where it's boiling hot right on the equator. And then I have spent most of my adult life in Southern California, which is kind of funny, again, because me and the sun do not get along. I have 2 colors. As a friend of ours once said, alabaster and lobster. It's not a good look for me. I always thought I should live somewhere like Ireland, where it rains a lot. So 3 years ago, we moved to Indiana, and I'm just saying, after California, it rains a lot. Speaking of Ireland and the rain, I ran the Dublin Marathon in the year 2000. It was my grand millennial triumph. It rained 26.2 miles. A lot of chafing and blisters and many, many tears commenced, but I did cross the finish line. Thank you. My little short runner legs, just trugging along. Anyway, I am one of 5 children. 3 of us are adopted. The other 2 are not so lucky. My mom was not supposed to be able to have children, but 8 months after I came home, my sister was born, my sister Sharon. So we have grown up very close, sharing cribs, sharing clothes, fighting over boys. We only did that once and then stopped. We chose our own versions. Anyway, she and I are very close. How close, you ask? How close are you? Yep. Well, she and I got matching ink for our 30th birthday, but that was before we knew they were tramp stamps. So, no one sees those tattoos anymore. We had no television growing up. Yes, okay. I would show you, but yeah. Okay. I grew up on the mission field. My dad was an airplane mechanic and pilot for Mission Aviation Fellowship. We had no television, but a friend back here in the United States sent us a whole crate of all the Nancy Drew books that had been written to date. And it changed my life. I was probably 8 or 9. And I was not Nancy. I was her tomboy friend, George. And when I wasn't reading, I was building tree houses, starting fires, or making weapons. So, speaking of weapons, my last name, Doughty, D-O-U-G-H-T-Y, actually means brave-hearted or stout-hearted and courageous. It's mine by marriage, but it's also who I am by design. I am Rosie the Riveter, the get-her-done girl. I'm a fighter, a crusader, and yes, I am a warrior princess. So, the weapons. We're talking about perfect peace, right? What's the tie-in? Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this, and I'm hoping you guys will understand and not just think I'm crazier than you already think I am. So, one of the things that was not on that list that I just gave you is that I'm a list person. And I mean, you know that because I just gave you a list, right? So I make lists for everything, and I rarely check everything off the list, but it is the way that I function. It's the way I keep order. It's the way I keep peace, the way I keep peace. And at the holidays, I don't just have a list. I have, all caps, the ultimate Christmas to-do list. And as many of you probably have your own version of this, it's the list of all the things I need to do so everyone in my world and beyond shoeboxes has the best Christmas ever this year. And you know, I may die trying to get everything checked off, but I will leave all of you smiling when I go. Okay, so really what this translates to is the list of all the things I said yes to, even though I know there is no humanly possible way that I can accomplish everything. And yet, I must accomplish it all because Jane next door, my sister, the favorite, my mother-in-law, or my office rival, they can do it all and more. And I must do it. Anyone else have a list like this month? Every month? Good, I'm not alone. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to my pals here, my blades. So this little guy is, oh, by the way, most of them are all related. They come from the family of Sure. So this is, I can plan the Christmas party, sure. I can organize the Secret Santa gift exchange too, sure. Oh, and of course, got to dig this one out. I will buy extra gifts because we all know that John in Cubicle 3 and who is it, Hildy in marketing, never remember to bring the gifts, right? And somehow they never choose each other in the drawing either. So sure, I will bring extra gifts. And I'm going to take this off because it's very binding. It's not supposed to move. Okay, my dagger's here. Let me see. This is, I will roast the turkey, of course, even though my oven door doesn't close all the way and I'm going to have to stay up all night and watch the meat thermometer to make sure it's not bloody in the morning. And I'm bringing 11 pies and probably 2 or 3 or 4 dozen homemade yeast rolls. Okay. And this one is, and yes, I will let crazy old Aunt Juju stay with me and her vile, ugly, mean cat. Sure. Oh, sorry, guys. Don't look. Okay. And I will share my heart at the ladies' Christmas tea. Sure. Then there are my all-time favorites. I hope I don't cut my mic cord here. Sorry, guys. Okay. I'm fine. Ugh. Hope I don't cut my neck. I got this. Okay. These weapons are how I keep order and perfect peace in my life. If not peace, order, right? But that brings peace, doesn't it? I am a brave heart, after all. I am armed and dangerous, ready to slash everything off my Christmas list, and somehow remain on my feet until the bitter end. Sorry, this is a very long belt. Is that everything? Okay. That's a lot of metal. They're heavy. They're cumbersome. They're ungainly, and they don't match my outfit. Much better, right? Okay. So here's the thing. We all know this already. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Jesus wants us to come to him and lay all this stuff at his feet. Isn't it great that there's actually a manger scene? It's not all the way at his feet. It's where I can still grab them, ironically. So here's Jesus. Matthew 11:28. Oops, sorry, guys. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Here's me. Sorry, Lord, as much as I love the sound of that rest, ain't nobody got time for that. Besides, I'm fine. I got this, I promise. Sorry, Camel. Jesus says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Me, oh, come on. You know there's no such thing as patience at Christmas. I'm a doer, not a waiter. Remember, God, I'm a fighter. Jesus says in Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Me. If I hold still for longer than 30 seconds, I will pass out into a coma and not wake up again until the new year, and then all of your Christmases will be ruined. Every one of you will have a bad Christmas because I slept. So Jesus then says, well, the King James Version reads, the Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. I am holding my peace, right? Okay. Our themed verse today is Isaiah 26:12. Lord, you will establish peace for us, for you have done all our work for us. I don't know about you, but I ache for that to be true. Especially at Christmas. Wouldn't it be great if we could just hand him our lists, our work, and let him do it all for us? If only I say as I pick up my weapon and stroke it lovingly, I got this, right? Because there's part of us that knows that's not going to happen. God isn't going to come down and go Christmas shopping for me. He's not going to come down and decorate the tree or find that special ornament that everybody's asking where it is, and I can't remember where I packed it last year. But if we don't have that one ornament, then we won't know who gets to be the Christmas Santa or the Santa that morning, to hand out the gifts. So he's not going to do all of that for us. But this has been my modus operandi my whole life. I am that worker bee. I am that brave heart. I'm fine. I got this. But when we lean on our own strength, our own ability, What happens when we get tired? Oh, I forgot to show you one of my best weapons. It's not really a weapon, but Sam, can you bring me that? This is my shield. #blessed. I'm telling you, this is one of the best weapons out there. I'm fine. I got this. I'm #blessed, right? But what happens when we get tired of holding up this shield? I'll tell you what happened to this warrior princess, because I was doing it on my strength. I started slashing without care. I started pointing fingers or daggers. I started looking for a way out. And eventually, I took my battered and bloodied weapons, and I rode off into the sunset on my Rebel motorcycle. Seriously, how apropos, right? I rode a Honda Rebel. Joel, you've got proof of that, right? There you go. Yes. The destruction. Wow, that was a while ago. The destruction of our marriage, my marriage, was a slow shattering, just little hairline cracks that spread and forked and turned into a lacework of brokenness until we were held together by just a fragile web of lies that we told ourselves and those around us. We're good. We're blessed. And when the lies got exposed and the pieces came crashing down, Kevin and I were certain there was no hope for restoration. So I left. I abandoned my marriage. I abandoned my children. And I abandoned my God. And during that season, I did some horrific and very dangerous things. It was a treacherous time in so many ways, and our children suffered terribly because of the decisions that Kevin and I made. I couldn't fix my marriage on my own. I couldn't heal my children, and you know what? I didn't blame God. I just walked away from Him too. I was tired. I was tired of taking care of everything. In my frantic search to find a place where I could live, I stumbled upon this for rent sign outside this trailer park. And the property was kind of run down, but it was a small park, and I could see people, gathering on porch steps and loitering at the mailbox, talking to each other. So it was neighborly, friendly, or the site of a horror movie, I don't know. But I was desperate, and if a rented rundown trailer was all I could get, then I would make it work. So the trailer park manager led me around the back of the property, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is going to be one of the bad ones here, across this little bridge with a creek flowing beneath it. And he points at this tiny, somewhat dilapidated one-room cottage with a river rock patio that was right up against that creek. And he says, that's it. Rather stoically, nothing special. Well, maybe he saw nothing special about the place, considering the little thing was all but naked. But I envisioned vines and pots and other pretty garden things and wind chimes and flowers and twinkle lights and all that. And I said, I'll take it. And I pulled out one of my favorite weapons. I got this. I'm not holding it right. I got this. This is where I found sanctuary. Joel, can you put that? For almost a year, when I had nowhere else to go. And while I was there, running from my broken marriage and family, hiding from those who loved me, drowning in a sea of things that could only bring destruction and death, the one who pursues me caught up with me. It didn't start out pretty, though. It didn't start out that pretty, that's for sure. In my blinded, wounded, battle-worn state, I spent those first weeks, months, cleaning and sharpening my weapons, convinced that I was finally free to go my own way, to heal myself, and to become powerful again in my own right. Free of the husband who kept me shackled, free of the children who kept me tied down, and free of the religion that put me in a box. And in my blinded, wounded, battle-worn state, I turned away from God completely and immersed myself in the occult. And that's a story for another day, but I know that Jesus cried many tears over that season in my life. Many tears. For a time, I thought I was invincible. I believed I was finally in control of my life again. All I had to do was call on the power that was inside of me. Me. It was my mantra. It's hard to repeat those two words and have anybody else care. I'm just going to tell you that. Talk about blind. The transition from powerful to pitiful happened without me even realizing it. I became imprisoned by the power I claimed to wield. Pitiful I truly was. At night, if I slept at all, it was in a trance-like state, and I would wake up hours later just stiff from not moving at all. It was like The Walking Dead. During the day, I would sit and stare for hours at a time, thoughts circling in my head, unable to form a cohesive thought. It was like the days just blurred together, and time kind of lost meaning. And I wasn't depressed, not clinically. I was terribly oppressed. I had invited the devil in as my guest, as my consort, and he had made himself comfortable and was planning on taking up permanent residence. But here's the beauty of grace, and I'm not talking about elegance or savoir-faire, which I promise I have none of. Don't ask me to dance because you will run screaming from the room or laugh. I'm talking about the raw, personal kind of grace that Jesus offers each one of us in this room. The kind of grace he didn't offer once, but once and for all. I'm sorry, I keep hitting that. The beauty of that kind of grace is that he meets us where we are, in the darkest dead-end street, the murkiest valley, the shadowlands I call them. Jesus Christ comes with his beautiful grace, his unfathomable gift of mercy, and his unconditional love. And even though I'd moved the enemy into my home, I was still royalty, a daughter of the King of Heaven, a child of God, a warrior, yes, but a warrior princess, by royal decree, by adoption into his kingdom. And my Father, God, wasn't going to let me go without a fight. So in spite of the shroud around my heart, I could hear him whispering to me, calling my name. And it wasn't loud. He didn't beat me over the head with a 2x4 or storm through the bracken yelling at me. He just whispered. He just called. Somewhere behind the velvet lies of the deceiver, I knew that Jesus was faithful even when I wasn't, and that he longed for me to return to him. And I'm going to get all woo-woo here, okay? And that's okay. I hope that's okay. Here. Late on a still July night, in my pitiful, desperate state, I sat out on my little patio and cried out to him, and I said, "Show me, God. I need to know you're real, and that you're here, and that you care what happens to me." And God showed up. This gentle breeze swirled across my patio, stirring the wind chimes that hung silent, and they'd been sullen and quiet for weeks. The giant eucalyptus tree, I don't know if you saw that tree in the picture, the giant eucalyptus tree branches creaked and groaned, and the leaves overhead trembled. See that great big thing right there? It was enormous. The crickets and other insects and night birds went silent, and we all kind of held our collective breath. And then it was over. And the wind swept up the swell behind the back of at the back of the park, and it was quiet again, but left behind this shaken but soul-awakened girl. I was not alone. He'd come for me. I gave up that night, and I stopped running. I didn't quite put down my weapons. I asked him to take me back and to free me from the prison that I'd put myself in, and I also asked him to help me find my way home to my family, if Kevin and the kids would have me. That Jesus would soften their hearts toward me. And you know that beautiful grace I talked about a moment ago? Before I even asked, Jesus was already pouring that into our home, preparing the way and filling the rooms with the promise of restoration. Okay, I know that seems like, the signs and wonders, and believe them or not, I have seen signs and wonders coming from the tips of my fingertips at the utterance of blasphemous words. But since when does Satan have the corner on that market, right? Why wouldn't God choose to reach me in a way that would speak directly to my stony, bitter, angry, broken heart? A way that he knew would reach me. Perhaps that was just some strange scientific phenomena, a weather pattern shift or a desert storm out in Palm Springs belching hot air my way. I don't know. Explain it away if you need to. But what I know is that when I called out to God, he answered me in a way that left no doubt in my heart that he wanted me back. In Jeremiah 24:17, God says, I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their hearts. This is the way I read it. I will give her a heart to know me, for I am the Lord. He gave me a heart to know him, and guess what? He's given you a heart to know him. All of you, all of us. Okay, so I don't get responses like that to all my prayers. I don't pray, okay, God, and then this wind comes through the room. It doesn't happen very often. Okay, it's sometimes, in fact, many times, it seems like God's too busy to hear me. Or, there are other things out there that need his attention more than I do most of the time. Sometimes he just doesn't even respond, but I can tell you this, that if I look, I will see little ways that he lets me know he loves me. Even if he doesn't answer the prayer or in the way that I want him to. There are things everywhere, even this room of women who have gathered and are sharing today. This is evidence of Christ's love for each one of us here. And we need to look for those signs. So, unconditional love, marriage, right? What happened to the marriage? It can be war. Okay, now, Joel, I know you are a newlywed, so just plug your ears, okay? It's all love and roses and where's Emily? Yeah, it's just rainbows and unicorns and yeah, marriage is awesome. Okay, it really is awesome, but it can also be war, and it should be war. So Kevin and I were fighting for our lives. We were fighting to save our marriage, though, not to destroy it. And we were fighting for our wounded and broken children. And I want to get this right. So after a lot of counseling, Kevin and I agreed to begin dating, tentatively, carefully. And one of the rules was, different than anything we'd ever done before, we had to pray together a lot. We'd prayed before over the dinner table, tucking the kids in, that kind of thing, but not ever this prayer together that bound us together with Christ at the center. And let me tell you, it was brutally uncomfortable. It was terrible. I hated it. Sorry, God. I was still trying to disentangle myself from the tenacious tentacles of darkness, and all while holding on to the weight of my guilt and shame like a cross that I alone could bear. It's kind of ironic that a sword is shaped like a cross. I'm fine. I've got this. And Kevin was trying too hard to claim the role of spiritual leader in our relationship. Painful, clumsy, awkward. We were pitiful and we felt powerless. But remember that transition I made from powerful to pitiful while practicing the occult? The more we practiced praying together, the easier and more comfortable it became, and the stronger we became in our relationship with each other and in our relationship with God, who designed the union of marriage in the first place. The transition from pitiful to powerful happened without us even realizing it, because the power was not our own, but Christ's, who lived and breathed through our prayers through our conversations with him. So when the subject of moving back home, because I was still ensconced in the cottage, came up, we took our time. And although I had destroyed the last vestiges of things that made the cottage a dark place, it had become a sanctuary for me, a place where I was beginning to find that rest that God had promised, a stillness in the middle of the storm. It was a place where Jesus had pulled me aside and was courting me. I wanted to go home desperately, but I was so afraid of losing that newfound peace. So it was right around that time that I discovered a mother hummingbird making her nest in a loop in the twinkle lights I'd strung on my tiny front porch. And day after day from my kitchen window, I got this front row view of her hard at work. She was tiny, and I'm pretty sure this was her first nest. And so I tried to help her. I left cobwebs over the front door, knowing she'd probably need them, and put a little pile of lint, dryer lint, outside on a shelf nearby. And there she is. See her up there? I even, at one point, because the loop was not sturdy enough, it started doing this. And so I got up there, and I tied a little string up. I don't think you can see it, but just kind of braced it up there for her. She didn't seem to mind. I think she said thank you once. But anyway, so there she was, and soon she was sitting on that nest, propped up there under the cover of my porch, waiting and waiting. We both waited. She for 2 tiny pale blue eggs the size of petite peas to hatch, and I waited for my heart and my head to get in sync with each other. So to the delight of us both, those 2 little eggs hatched, and from the very beginning, those babies were as different as night and day. I named them Pip and Squeak. Pip was long and lean and full of adventure, and Squeak was short and stubby and timid. And as they grew, Pip's little head would poke out of the nest, surveying the territory, while Squeak squatted low and squeaked. So I watched and waited, praying that I wouldn't miss their voyage, their first flight. Well, the day finally came, and Kevin and I were on the phone, and I was explaining to him why it was such a hard time to leave the cottage. The leaves were beginning to turn, the summer was losing its edge, and the babies were still in the nest, crowded and cramped, but refusing to budge. I stepped outside to check on them, and I wailed. They were gone. The nest was empty, and I had missed it. Kevin tried to console me, but I'd been holding my breath for weeks for those tiny birds to clamber out of their safe little nest and try out their wings, to learn to fly so they could make homes of their own. And it struck me in that moment. This little bird needed to crawl out of my safe nest and spread my wings and fly away home. So I said, "It's time," I whispered to my husband. "I'm coming home." So as I turned to head back inside, I stopped short and gasped. I literally gasped, for those of you who know the movie reference. I literally gasped. Anyway, that was kind of with a Scottish accent, so never mind. Okay, I lost my train of thought. With joy. I gasped with joy because there, not a foot in front of me, there's the front door of the little cottage. On this eucalyptus branch that I'd stuck in a vase right there under the kitchen window, sat the 2 birds. So Pip is on the left, and Squeak is on the right. And you can see they're just 2 completely different little creatures. So anyway, both of them sat there just recovering from their first flight, and the nest was just basically right up in the corner here. Yep, outside my front door. I should have known because Mama Bee was hovering around and yelling and encouraging them. So it took about 15 minutes before Pip finally spread his wings and awkwardly fluttered back up to the nest. It's a lot easier going down than it is going back up, I'm telling you. And probably another 15 more minutes before Squeak finally did the same. But over the next couple of weeks, while I packed, Pip and Squeak stretched their wings, and every day they flew farther and farther from the nest, stayed away longer and longer. And by the time I'd moved out, they had moved out too, leaving me with a certainty that my time there was over. God brought joy in the middle of that transition period when I needed to move from safety into a battleground because my home was still a war zone. And he brought this moment of joy that I could take with me, that I knew, this confirmation, validation that I was going the right direction. Even with all of that confirmation, the journey back was, so rocky. Riddled with potholes, sinkholes, black holes, shame, guilt, blame, anger, fear, self-pity, and self-righteous piety. Talk about weapons. There were days when Kevin and I couldn't see past the next minute together. Nights where those 6 inches of mattress between us could have been 6 million miles. Our children had a grueling time readjusting to the adjusting we'd made them do. Our eldest even convinced our youngest, whom you all know, sorry, Sammy, to call me by my first name instead of Mom. But we were determined, with God as our commander-in-chief, that the war zone our marriage had become would once again be a place of refuge, of peace for our family, that our home, not his, not mine, our home, would be our sanctuary, a place to run to and not from. Over the years, we've had to learn to stop leaning on our own strength and understanding, but on God's. We've had to lay down our weapons, and I'm telling you, that is the hardest thing to do, especially for me. I don't know about you guys. Oh, look, I'm going to snag this here. Believe me, Kevin has his own weapons, just so you know, okay? And we've had to be vulnerable and raw and real before God and each other. We've had to trust God, which means we've had to get to know him as somebody different than we thought he was. And it was the only way to have perfect peace, not just order, not just control, but perfect peace. Only the kind that can be found in him. And I won't lie to you, there was a lot of hard work. We are still working hard every day. A friend reminded us, we have to do the possible work so that God can do the impossible work. We don't get to just sit back and rest on our laurels. He does want us to do our part, right? But we had spent too many years just letting the chips fall wherever they landed, and we decided no more. We were going to be like the Jews rebuilding the city back in Nehemiah's time with a tool in one hand as we rebuilt the sanctuary and a weapon in the other, but this time a weapon fighting on the right team, on the team of us, not of me or him or them or God. Yes, on God's team. That wasn't the right thing to say. Yes, definitely God's team. But you know what I'm saying. Not fighting for me and my strength, but fighting together. And prayer. Prayer, that was the greatest weapon of them all. Not just ours, our families, our friends, our churches. We needed a whole host of heavenly and earthly warriors, prayer warriors, fighting alongside us. But we are a living proof today that prayer works. We've actually been married longer post-separation now than we have been married before separation. So praise God, prayer works. Every day we get up and ask God to give us the courage and the strength, the patience, the love, the joy to fight for the sacredness of our home, which is our sanctuary, every day. Because the peace and the joy, when we let him do our work for us, that's so worth it. So worth it. So that psalm that Megan read earlier, I kind of think it's a favorite of God's too, because it's in the Bible twice. It's in 2 Samuel 22 also. So that section, there's a long section, it's pretty cool, but the last part of it ends with, every day I review the ways he works, and I try not to miss a trick. This is out of the Message Bible, so it's, a little hip. Anyway, I feel put back together, and I'm watching my step. God rewrote the text of my life when I opened the book of my heart to his eyes. And now if that wasn't written for an author, I don't know what was, because that's my language. So I have a new weapon these days, and it's forged out of that season of restoration spent in a cottage at the back of the trailer park, and it's shaped like a pen or like a laptop. It was 7 years. Anyone know what 7 represents in the Bible? We all do, right? Completion. 7 years before I really revisited that cottage and my time there. God put a story on my heart, and then he taught me how to wield my new weapon in a way I'd never done before for him. Writing stories about him and for him. And out of that season of pain and healing came this book, Elderberry Croft. It's not my story, but it could be. It could be my story because it's about somebody who came lost and broken, destroyed, and found healing because God met her there. So out of that season also came the knowledge that God made me the way I am. I am a fighter. I'm a crusader. I'm a getter done. I am a warrior princess. He made me a brave heart, and he would have me no other way. And however he made you, he would have you no other way. But he wants you, he wants me to stop, take a moment, especially in this busiest time, this busy season. Stop and take a moment and be still before him. Rest, be restored. That's what we're doing here. We're resting and being restored. And I don't want to see any cell phones out. Okay? We're resting. We're taking a bite of that perfect peace. He wants us to have access to that at all times, no matter what the season. Isaiah 26:12, our verse, Lord, you will establish peace for us, for you have also done all our work for us. The work he is talking about is not our Christmas list, or not our shopping, not something that you'll find on that ultimate to-do list, unless you put prayer on that list. And if you did, you're a better woman than I am. Okay. That list that we lug around with us, he's not going to do that for us. But the work he's talking about is in here. The work he's talking about is our hearts, keeping them soft, joy-filled, searching for his presence in everything and everywhere in everything we do and everywhere we go. He's given us these hearts to know him and to recognize him. He doesn't want you to stop doing life. He's just asking you to let him be your strength, your source of power, and your source of joy and peace. So, it kind of goes back to Christmas. Isn't that the real glory of Christmas? Why we're here today? The reason that we can have joy and perfect peace? Jesus Christ, God of the angel armies. That's right out of the Message too. I like the Message. The King of Kings. He didn't come to earth bearing weapons of mass destruction, although he probably should have. He came unarmed as a vulnerable, helpless baby, born into a world of poverty and judgment. Remember, Mary was an unwed teenage mother. He wasn't wrapped in silk and satin and laid in a gold-lined cradle in a castle. He was born to edge dwellers, a carpenter and his scared young wife. And his first visitors were the edgiest of edge dwellers, the shepherds, crass, crude outcasts, who would never in a million years have been allowed to set foot inside the walls of the city, no less a castle. He came the way he did because he meets us where we are, in a livestock lean-to or a castle, in a dilapidated cottage or in a mansion, in a broken home, in a #blessed home, in a hospital, at a graveside, on the road, in a ditch, and hopefully not in the ditch after being on the road, but even there, he does meet us there too. Even at a women's only Christmas tea, he's here. And he's even more thrilled than I am that you're here too. So, thanks for having me. I hope you have a blessed and joyful season. And I I don't know, have you told everybody about the books?
Getting ready to.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy getting to know Willow Good Hope, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.